Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin our session that we all have been waiting for, the Expert Talk session. Our guest speaker for today is Encik Muaz Abdul Shukur. Encik Muaz Abdul Shukur is the Chief Strategy Officer at JLand Johor Corporation. In this first session with JLand, among the topic of discussion would be, what are the key roles and responsibilities of state funds like JCorp in delivering growth and capitalizing on major government initiatives like NETR and HSR? What are the major value unlocking exercises that can be carried out by JLand in order to deliver wealth creation for its stakeholders? Once again, if you have any questions for Encik Muaz after this presentation, you may type out your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Without further ado, I will now like to invite and hand over the mic to our moderator for today, Encik Adam Muhammad Rahim, Senior Research Analyst, RHB Investment Bank Berhad, to lead the session. Over to you, Adam.
Thank you, Alia. So I'd like to welcome everyone for this first presentation session with JLand. So of course, together we have with us Encik Muaz, which is the Chief Strategy Officer of JLand, a JCorp company. So I think Encik Muaz will bring us through and explain to us more about the prospects, in Johor, that is being spearheaded by JCorp or JLand this matter. So I think without further ado, I'd like to pass on the floor to Encik Muaz to begin his presentation.
Thank you very much, Adam. Assalamualaikum, everyone. Good morning. Really appreciate the opportunity for us to participate in this forum. Thank you to the senior management of RHB Investment Bank and the team. So today, I'm representing JCorp, right? However, just to qualify, I'm at the level of JLand Group. Yeah? JLand Group is now the newly created holding company for the real estate businesses under JCorp. So I'll go through some of the slides here today with you. Maybe we can go straight to the TOC. Okay. So today I'll take us through a few things. We've broken up the presentation just for ease of the discussions. But I think Adam mentioned that he might come in on questions during the slides, which is fine. So we'll go through the introduction of JCorp and JLG. We'll update you on what we have been doing at group level with regards to the restructuring of the businesses. Following that, I think today we are all interested to understand a bit more about the implications of the growth drivers. Right? We're quite excited looking at the announcements as well as developments that we are seeing for Malaysia as well as for Johor and the region. So we'll touch a little bit about the growth drivers that we are seeing and considering in our strategies. However, I probably wouldn't spend too much time on it. I think you guys have been analyzing the announcements as we have and very well familiar with it. I'll touch on the takeaways perhaps and implications on us, especially from the customer perspective. Yeah? Which will influence how we then, talk about the third section, which is how JLG ourselves are looking at positioning for these opportunities. Right, we see big opportunities here, and then we'll close in section 4. So maybe next, please. Okay, so just to start off with JCorp, we know it's our State Development Corporation of Johor. Extensively involved with several sectors across the economy and industrial development for the state. As an investment holdco, we are in the business of plantations through Kulim. We're in the business of healthcare through KPJ. We're in the business of food and restaurants through QSR. Maybe you can move to the next slide, sorry. Yep. QSR for the food and restaurants, and of course, where we sit within the group, we're within the real estate and infrastructure group, where JLand Group sits, and we cover the areas within real estate development, asset life cycle management, real estate investment, and infrastructure and utilities. So, as a state development company, I think we're not just focused on developing the industries and the the economic drivers in the state, right? Our corporate philosophy is really about membina dan membela. Yeah. So what it means to us is membina is through wealth creation of these businesses and the stakeholders. And also we are looking at membela, which is through the wealth distribution philosophy. Yeah. Next, please. So now we're zooming down to JLG. As I mentioned, JLG is at our tail end of our corporate restructuring, where we have been moving assets that were previously, I guess, fragmented and reporting to JCorp, where JCorp, as you know now, JCorp is already focused on being an investment holdco. So the businesses are held at JLG for real estate across the pillars. End-to-end value chain, we're looking at expanding our vision. If I start with the vision, is to be the leading sustainable real estate solutions provider with competencies to own, build, operate, and monetize. Yeah, but we are more and more thinking about the purpose of the organization, and it's encapsulated by our slogan that build, create, and thrive. Right? Therefore, we are trying to think beyond traditional real estate and drive more value to our customer segments beyond just the physical infrastructure. So our core values also, of course, include courage, commitment, customer focus, and collaboration for impact. Next, please. So this is a view of our business pillars within the JLG group. Yeah? As I said, we have core competencies, capabilities across the value chain of real estate. If you see the first pillar where we have brands like JLand and TPM, IPTEC, the real estate development side is really where we are doing these are the landowners, right? The capital intensive part of the business. So this focuses on residential, commercial, as well as industrial development. And the next pillar, we have asset lifecycle management. So this includes development, project management. It includes IFM as well across different products and services, security, cleaning, asset management, etc. And thirdly, we have the real estate investments. So I think we have the brands there, Asalam, Alaka, managed under DRMSB. And lastly, we have the infrastructure and the utilities, which is currently holding our port asset. Yeah? But this is also another business that we see growing. I'll speak a little bit about some of the areas that we are expanding into through this pillar. Next, please. Just a view of our township developments in Johor. Of course, our main area is within the Johor Bahru, Greater Johor Bahru area. We also have townships in Bandar Datuk On, Pasir Gudang, Bandar Tiram is the new upcoming one, Sri Gading and Muar, Batu Pahat. Yeah. So we are also starting to go beyond Johor and beyond Malaysia. Our first project in Queensland, Australia is initiating now for townhouses in Queensland. Next, please. Okay, this gives us a view of our industrial business, which is within the TPM company I mentioned earlier. So as you can see, 34 industrial areas developed. These are the main ones that we're looking at today. The flagship industrial park that we are aggressively marketing to partners and also developing now is Ibrahim Technopolis, which is located in Sedena. We'll speak a little bit more about this flagship project later. But we also have other industrial facilities in Muar Furniture Park as well as Pengerang and Tanjung Langsat. Next, please. Okay, so I think this is a very, very big agenda for us. We have recently, we're still on the journey, obviously, but it starts with really coming up with a framework for sustainability. This is a big area across all the pillars that we're looking at. We're committed towards looking at a low carbon economy. Of course, governance has always been a focus area for us, but we're looking beyond that. Ecosystems, even our human capital and all that is going to be strengthened. So with this formalization of our framework, we are now looking to put into practice and policies across the different functions and operations of the business, including our supply chain. Next, please. A snapshot of our financial highlights, both at JCorp and at JLG level. 5.7 billion in revenues, total assets of 24 billion as of last year for JCorp. For JLG, this is showing our pro forma on aggregated basis. As I mentioned, the restructuring is ongoing, and we're hoping to finalize all the movements of the assets and equity within, I guess, first quarter or second quarter next year. But this is already giving us a view of the consolidated real estate group across the 4 pillars. Okay, so I think today everyone's interested and excited to see some of the announcements and news that's been coming up. And we wanted to talk about some of them. Can we go to the first one, please? Okay, so I guess at state level, we're really looking at the Makmur Johor 2030 development plan as the overall state development North Star. Yeah, so we align to this. We are talking to the state stakeholders on this quite actively. Next, please. Again, this gives a view of some of the components, advantages of Johor, looking at some of the initiatives that's already been announced, allocation of funding, support, as well as initiatives to bring in investments. Next, please. Okay, so this, I think we saw this from the report from MIDA, and I guess just to highlight the takeaway for us here is last year Johor was the biggest beneficiary of FDIs, totaling to 70 billion, and notable is I think 50 plus of that is data centers in Johor. Next, please. Okay, National Energy Transition Roadmap. Again, this is a huge announcement. We really welcome this announcement and think this is a great push by the government. Right, they've been quite. I guess they've announced it in 2 phases. Yeah, maybe the next one we can talk about the phases. But it's quite comprehensive the way we see it in terms of coverage of the levers as well as the flagship and catalyst projects. We're still waiting for maybe more announcements on some of the mechanisms. But areas of interest for us, I guess, when we're looking at our customer segments across the townships as well as the industrial developments, it's quite a few here. Yeah, I think efficient switch, RE zone, storage, green hydrogen. Yeah, so RE zones itself, sorry, yeah, you can flip over. RE zones itself, I think, is an interesting prospect for us. We have been speaking to other partners and the lead agency, Khazanah, to see how we can position some of our assets. I'll speak a little bit more about this later. I think ETEC is an interesting site for us to consider. If you look at the other models of RE zones successful, whether in New South Wales or Europe or in America, I think it takes us a lot of coordination at government level, stakeholder level. The ecosystem must come into play. And I guess to encourage that, the view is you have to have the demand, yeah, and the demand is something that we can offer through our industrial park and master plan. Next, please. This has been recently announced. I think we are also still digesting this. But the takeaway for us again, right, positive announcement for companies and businesses and investors. Most of the sectors covered here are relevant to JLG across our 34 industrial areas, as well as the future developments in IPTEC. Yeah, so this is, I think, very, very interesting as well, RTS link. Effectively, we see it as, just one MRT stop away from Singapore, or rather from Singaporean perspective, one MRT stop away for them, right? So it's interesting to imagine how this is going to change the landscape of Johor Bahru and the Greater Johor Bahru area, and also the impact that it will carry on citizens, businesses, and the like. Yeah, and this is really quite close to our core JBCC IIBD development, which we'll also speak about in a bit. Next, please. So I think, yeah, so we're starting to go into the area where I think we are trying to digest, right? And think of the implications of these growth drivers, firstly on our stakeholders, our customer segments, right? And then how does that influence and impact our strategic direction as a group? Yeah, if we're thinking beyond real estate, one of the things that we are focused on now is trying to look from the customer perspective. So just talking about these two drivers alone, if we're looking at RTS and the energy transition that we're seeing now in Malaysia, with the momentum, with the positive initiatives, right? I think this is of course something we are trying to imagine, right? Yeah, if we imagine the end state for our stakeholders, what then can we provide in terms of value, and what do we need to build and drive to provide them these solutions. So for citizens and families, we're looking at energy transition could translate into more demand for sustainable living. There'll be more opportunities for the families to look at green jobs. There'll be probably the ecosystem around Johor Bahru and Greater Johor Bahru in terms of education is going to improve to fulfill the talent requirements. In terms of the energy transition, also, I think we think a lot about the inclusivity to include not just the M40 or T20, but also the P40s in participating in the green economy. Yeah. So, of course, on the RTS side, again, enhanced quality of life, better mobility, urban development is going to improve. So these are some of the potential future state components that we see driven by the growth drivers that we're talking about today. Yeah. So next, please. When we look at retail and commercial segment, I think energy transition again is looking at influencing how they operate, influencing how they're looking at supply chains, influencing how they look at smart facilities, smart energy management, smart building management, right? And of course, I think the impact of going green is going to be positive for the businesses. In terms of the RTS, obviously we're going to see the urban planning improve. We're going to see the footfall improve with wider, diverse customer base, probably more international coming from Singapore. And this leads to, again, right, the increasingly cosmopolitan kind of landscape for Johor Bahru. Brands will be different potentially, right? So these are some of the things that we have to consider in looking at how we plan for the future. Next, please. When we look at international businesses, again, just across the causeway or regionally, but Singapore is a big target market for us to attract investments. 3.43, I think, is the rate Sing dollar today. So I mean, arbitrage on operational cost, diversity of talent pool. Of course, the food is better. Yeah. And then for green data centers, I think we're looking at a lot of demand coming from the data centers who need to be very, very close to their Singapore operations. So again, that's a topic for us to go into further when we talk about big tech. So this is the kind of landscape that we're trying to imagine that's possible for Johor Bahru and Greater Johor Bahru. Next, please. Okay, so based on that, I guess, how are we thinking about, again, I said our operations driving our strategies across JLG's 4 business pillars? Yeah. We are focusing our conversation today just on 2 maybe flagship projects that we have or initiatives that we're looking at. JB City Centre is the area downtown in Johor Bahru, right? The area that we are marking out here is really what is also the zone for IIBD. And within that, you can see that JLG itself, we have assets close to, I think this is close to 1.7 to 1.8 billion ringgit. Yeah, and you can see the statistics. So the implications that we just discussed just now is going to be strong considerations for us to see how we go and develop and enhance and upgrade our commercial assets here. Yeah. Next, please. And this is talking about IIBD, Iskandar International Business District. Very interesting project, urban renewal for the space that we've seen just now. I think it covers an area of 250 acres. And this is the master plan is being discussed now between ourselves and the state government. Our role is to be a master developer and also facilitate the funding and the feasibility of this project because this is a project that requires actually an ecosystem approach, investments from the business community, etc. So this is quite ambitious, but I think the idea is fantastic. And with the current drivers going on with RTS, I think this could gain traction, and you can see developments moving on this year. So the project actually has already drawn up the master plan to break up the existing area into 6 precincts, namely the business quarter, the Royal Boulevard, Central Park, Innovative District, Creative, as well as Heritage. Okay, so this one is just a short video of IIBD to give a view of what we are looking at. Yeah. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, so that's one of the I guess IIBD JBCC area we are looking at as a portfolio strategy. So how do we look at enhancements of value of those assets as well as the surrounding neighborhoods, IIBD overall. Yeah. So that's where I think it's interesting for us to look at how we contribute from the four pillars, across four pillars. All of our pillars have opportunities there actually. So now we move on to IPTEC. This is showing you the master plan located in Sedenak, close proximity to the highway. So 7,290 acres. So this is a smart city mixed development township as we plan it. But currently the phase 1 is the one that has been that is in operations today. If you see step 1 and step 2, those are already carved out areas for us within this master plan to become sites for data centers. To update, I guess data center step 1, we are basically 95% already full, and for step 2, I think ongoing pipeline is very strong for us to fill up the space. And in fact, we're trying to think about whether we need to even expand the allocation for data centers. The other interesting, I guess the second one that we are already ongoing now is the logistics and warehousing. We have a JV with Yongnam where they have 51%. There's an area of 300 acres within the logistics cluster that they have taken up, where 40 acres will be for their own use for smart logistics, and the rest will be developed further for other logistics customers. We are also kicking off on the Discovery City, which will be really like the Pusat Bandar of IPTEC soon. I think now we're at the stage where we have already organized international master plan design competition. Sorry, not master plan, right? From the inviting the likes of Foster and Partners, Hadi, to design the components of the Discovery City based on sustainable smart concepts. Next, please. So the value propositions, again, I've mentioned some of them. This aims to be within the LCCF, Low Carbon City Framework, to meet sustainable goals, right? We're trying to, of course, facilitate investments from international players who also look at this, of course, as a requirement, not just the design, but also, the support facilities, the infrastructure, the power requirements, and so on. Next, please. Okay, so I think this is almost at the end of my slides, but I just hope that gives a quick view of what we see in terms of drivers, what we see in terms of the implications on the market, on the customers, and therefore some of the projects that we are looking at very closely to find opportunities and actually to see how each of our pillars can contribute there. Maybe you can go to the last slide, but I'm sorry, this is not it. Apologies, we're not done yet. So that slide came up too early. Okay, IPTEC, I think this is again a slide that is building up on the selling proposition. So again, I mentioned sustainable city, walking distance, right? We want to make it a very livable city. There's also ecosystems that we're trying to encourage there, which includes innovation hub, education, and also built-in smart township park management systems. Okay, so this gives a view of the existing customers at step one, as I mentioned. So we have the big hyperscalers there, Keppel, Princeton, Bridge, Yonder, and K2 is the latest one that we have just signed with. Okay, so this is highlighting some of our strategic collaborations that we have basically formalized since last year and this year. Sojitz is really looking at ammonia bunkering. That's at our port facilities in Tanjung Lansat. This is, I guess, partly in anticipation of looking at new energy sources from hydrogen. But this is going to take some time, I think. But we're already starting to talk to Sojitz about some possible opportunities to co-invest. Secondly, we're looking at Mitsui and company to they have plans to develop a hyperscale data center with a captive solar farm in STEP, so which we have already allocated a parcel of land for solar farm there. Gentari, I think this is already public. Of course, this is a partnership for us to work with Gentari on two areas. One is solar rooftops, rooftop solar for residential as well as industrial. And next is also on the EV charging stations across our assets, with the residential or industrial. And lastly, here we are highlighting our collaboration with MSA Resources, where we are looking at fulfilling the requirements of really our customers at Sedena, right? With the data centers coming in, there's big requirements for fiber connectivity. And of course, when we are looking at developing smart townships, this is also an important infrastructure piece that we need to get set up. Next, please. Okay, so this is my concluding slide, really. Yeah. So I think based on that, we see the prospects for Johor citizens, businesses, very positive with the drivers that's aligning towards Johor now. We see ourselves as a good partner in terms of our brand heritage and parentage with JCorp, our history of developing industries and communities in Johor. We also have our strengths in terms of being an integrated real estate solutions that can actually support requirements of our segments across. Our purpose is aligned, I guess, to some of the goals of our stakeholders and not just ourselves. So we're looking at like I said, customer perspectives, right? What's the implication? What's the world looking like? And we will align our businesses beyond traditional real estate towards their solutions. Partner for platform and growth for us, I see that just those two platforms from IIBD and JBCC, as well as IPTEC, quite interesting opportunities for us, right? Within JCorp, JLG's ecosystem, as well as with partners that we can collaborate with to deliver new business models to support ETR, to support the implications of RTS. And lastly, I just wanted to finish with our commitment to sustainability as a corporate citizen. This is important for us, and again, I think this is going to be reflected across our practices and policies and operations going forward. Okay, so with that, I end my presentation and open to questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Cik Muaz, for the very insightful presentation. So just to remind the audiences, if you have any Q&A, please feel free to include your questions in the Zoom chat box. But I think just to start the ball rolling, perhaps I can begin with the first question for Cik Muaz. So I think, Cik Muaz, just now you were mentioning in terms of FDIs, if I heard correctly, I think you mentioned about what, 50% around there actually came from data centers? I mean, so I appreciate if you can correct me there.
Actually, I was quoting a report. I don't have the number on me now.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
no
worries. All right.
70 billion that came in last year.
Okay.
50 odd billion of that was actually.
Oh, billion, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyways, coming back to Johor, I mean, specifically for data centers, I mean, I think in your slides you highlighted that there was Yonder Keppel Data Center, Princeton Digital Group, and I think another few. So I think this news regarding data centers, I think it picked up sometime around I think even as early as last year. I mean, for example, Yonder, I think made that announcement to enter into Johor, sometime around in, I think, first quarter of last year. And then I think this year we saw a few other announcements such as
Yes.
Entrang and also Princeton Digital. So my question is, beyond the names that I mentioned, has there been, any other inquiries coming from these hyperscale data center providers from
Yeah.
maybe for Singapore? But just wondering, aside from Singapore, has there also been some other interest coming from maybe other countries besides Singapore? Yeah, that's my question.
Definitely, right? I think first of all, we are seeing increasing requests from the existing names, number one, right, from the step one players. But we're also seeing some new inquiries from the countries will be coming from Singapore and Australia, really.
Okay.
As I mentioned, we have step two. Currently, I think the availability of step two right now is net 300 acres, and but there's also now there's quite advanced conversations that could quickly fill up that space.
I see. Okay. We have. Thank you for your reply, Jim Was. Okay, we have our first question from the floor from Helen Tan. What is the estimated GDV of IIBD, and what is the timeline for this development?
Okay, I don't think I can give the response to that yet, right? Because the development plan for IIBD is still in discussions with Bursa through the MMK forum. So the plans are being formalized. I can't give you the number.
All right, understood. And yeah, okay. So now you highlight. Okay, there's another question here. How much area has been taken up in Sedenak 1 and 2? In terms of percentage wise, and and what's the land price? I mean, if you can share.
Okay. I can answer the first one. I think the first one is for step one. I think 95% taken. For step two, it's almost 50% already spoken for. Yeah. In terms of land price, it depends, right? I mean, it's
Okay, sure. Right,
but obviously, some of the earlier names too came in based on catalytic kind of arrangement, right? We wanted to encourage one or two coming in first to boost the demand and also to encourage the other ecosystem players to come. But going forward, I think we're not looking at that kind of pricing anymore. It's been going up.
Right, and another question is JLand going to develop the entire 250 acres in JBCC? And is there any potential outright sale or JV?
Okay. So the JPCC area, like I said, we have our own assets across there, right? Galleria, Komta, JLand, right? The rest is not we don't own it. Yeah? So our role actually, IIBD Johor Sungai Berhad, we have 60% in there. Is as a master developer from the urban development, urban renewal kind of perspective, right? So we are actually looking to bring in other folks to come in and collaborate and partner with the different clusters actually, right? So each cluster probably I'm thinking we probably need to look at anchors, innovative cluster and so on, right? For the business district, we have Coronate already committed to building 6 towers. So there's always already 2 towers that you can already see in construction. One of them being Jewel Tower, where we are looking to provide a wellness wellness and healthcare facilities there, for example. So yeah, so it's a bit of a different kind of approach that we have there, and you know, we don't.
All right. Okay, Encik Mas. So the next question is, how is JLand's or JCorp's infrastructure planning going ahead? And has the current influx of data centers, has this required extra infrastructure works, which would then lead to extra spending and higher price incurred by JLand or JCorp in this matter? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think, first of all, the master plan already has done full feasibility on the infrastructure needs, first of all. So that's number one. Number two, but yes, there is this situation where data center players have really, really big requirements, right? So power is one of them, right? Energy. Of course, we are close to the grid. We are very close. We are next to the grid in Sedana. 500 kilovolts. But how do you supply RE, right? How do you supply RE to them, to the amount that they require? I mean, we are working on steps towards delivering this. We're still finding ways, because solar itself, even the farm that we have carved out in Sedana, honestly, almost 200 acres, it doesn't produce nearly enough for the type of customers that we have there in terms of RE generation. And number two, I think the infrastructure, the more interesting one actually is the fiberization, where to avoid to take care of the connection between Singapore, their Singapore data centers and us in Sedana, for example. There needs to be strong connectivity, right? Latency issues and all that to be considered. But even within the step, for example, we're seeing that they are connecting to each other, and there's also fiberization infrastructure that we need to think of. So that's kind of like something new that we're looking at, right, in terms of their demand. We're understanding what the demands are from the data center players, and it's quite big. It's huge, right? So in terms of cost, yes, maybe we are incurring a bit more capex, but the business is there, to answer the question.
All right. Thank you, Encik Muaz. Okay, I think still on DCs or these data centers, right? In addition to the connectivity and infrastructure, what other incentives are being offered by the Johor state government to attract data center investors in the state? You could share a bit more on that.
I think maybe our colleagues in UDA could probably address that better than me. But okay. I think basically the incentives are for them to facilitate ease of coming into the business, into the country and making investments. So I don't have too much details on that.
Okay, sure. But then there's another question also. Should we be concerned about the huge capacity coming on stream over the next 3 to 5 years, considering the aggressive expansion by other overflowing markets in Johor, Batam, and Thailand?
I'm sorry, you say concern about the capacity coming in?
Yeah, the huge capacity coming on stream in the next 3 to 5 years, considering the aggressive expansion by other overflowing markets in, I think, Johor/Batam and Thailand.
You mean the capacity for data centers?
Yes, yes. I think it's, the person was referring to that.
I see. Trying to think, concern. I think we look at it as a good problem. Like I said, we did see data centers becoming big. The real demand now is actually maybe growing faster than we thought, right? And in terms of speed, it's about how do we take advantage of the opportunity for me, right? Like I say, it's a good problem. In terms of getting data centers operational, the time frame from 18 months has now, be compressed to 12. And some of the players that we have now is coming in fast, and they want to get operational by 2024, for example, right? So it puts a bit of pressure for us in terms of how do we get set up, how do we make sure we can meet the timing and the demand, and of course, like I said, the supporting infrastructure needs to be ready, power, fiber, etc. So in terms of concern, I wouldn't say. I think we see it as a good opportunity. It's about how do we get ourselves organized and build the right partnerships to manage the demand.
All right. Okay. The next question is something touching on, I think, the land price, maybe, I think, in step, I think, which, of course, you couldn't really disclose, but the person mentioned that market rate seems to be around 325 ringgit per square feet, which is building and land minus TNB, Syarikat Air Johor, and IWK premium. So for Johor Land Group, could Johor Land Group or JLG offer a better all-in-one price package, for whoever, sets up, whatever investments in initiatives spearheaded by JLG?
Yeah, okay, sorry. Based on that, I don't have a comparison in terms of our selling price. But yes, of course, we can be competitive, like I said, right? I mean, for us, if tech is at its initial phase, we are courting investors to come in as anchor tenants across the different other clusters. For example, E&E is the next one after we focus on the Discovery City. So it's important. The way we want to approach the business development aspect, when we're marketing tech, for example, is what are the sectors that are very active today, right? So we see, for example, under advanced E&E, what are the sub sectors that we want to attract? This could be RE related now today that we see, whether it's players coming in to do generation, transmission, storage, especially potentially, right? So I think the way we approach it is we want to get the big names, and we want the big names to come in with their ecosystem support.
Right.
Coming in as well.
Okay, so there are two next questions, but these are focusing on renewable energy or RE. So in a nutshell, what kind of renewable energy options can JLG offer for companies aiming for this sustainable development goals or ESG goals?
In terms of strategy for RE, that is something we're thinking about under our fourth pillar. I mentioned earlier, the fourth pillar is infrastructure and utilities. We call it infratech. The focus of that pillar is looking at 4 areas. One is our RE. Number 2 is fiber. 3 is water, and lastly, we're looking at waste management. So again, these services are all relevant to our residential industrial parks. Realistically, today, the technology that's available that we're exploring, with names like Gentari and Synergy, etc., it's solar. However, we know that solar capacity, it's difficult for us to supply the amount that's to meet the demand just on solar alone. So we have to explore new technologies. However, we haven't landed on anyone yet that's going to be the transition, right? Perhaps it's gas, perhaps it's green ammonia and hydrogen is a bit further down the timeline. But again, when we look at NETR, one of the components that they are talking about there is the energy exchange. Yes, we're looking at energy exchange further forward. Maybe we can do something and generate and sell. But for the time being, we're also interested to see how the energy exchange can facilitate purchase of RE for our industrial clients, for example. So those are some of the strategies that we're bouncing off.
Okay, so moving on to the next question, which still revolves on RE. I mean, has there been any latest developments on the Pengerang Industrial Park, and are we seeing more traction from potential customers, and is there any potential for RE for that area, I mean this Pengerang Industrial Park area?
If I'm not mistaken, sorry, I don't have full details on that, but I know that we are one of the initiatives that we're doing is we are providing industrial rooftop solar. So Pengerang is also one of our areas that we're doing that, especially where as attrition happens, right? People are renewing their lease. For example, that's the
Right.
opportunity for us to come in with a solar proposition and see that we can offer the total solution. Yeah.
Right. But sorry, so you're not so has that area been seeing more traction from potential customers? I mean, if you happen
Sorry, I
to
don't
know.
have the visibility on
Okay,
that.
all right, sure. No worries. And last but not least, the last question is, are there any plans for JLand to be listed on Bursa?
For JLand,
Yeah.
okay, so there's a few levels that we have in the company now, right? So just to explain, JLand Group is the whole co, and we hold the pillars bawah kita ni, which is the real estate development. So that has JLand, TPM, Technology Park Malaysia. Sorry, TPM so there's the industrial land punya business. So that's the asset heavy company, yeah. Landowners and all that. The development projects are under these brands, townships and industrial parks. The second pillar we have is the ALM. So within that ALM, you know that we have IFM. The Taman Sara Berhad is actually within that pillar. It was listed. We took it private recently because we are restructuring the company and basically looking at synergies, efficiencies, right, optimization, etc. And that potentially could go to market in the next couple of years, right? Because we see that as a more asset-light cash flow. It's more services kind of business. Yeah. So that's one of the areas that we could do. But otherwise, I guess too early to tell. But when we look at the infratech pillar and RE and fiber, those spaces are getting very interesting as well, which could provide further growth for the group. Yeah. So potential maybe across those areas.
All right. Okay, I think we just have room for one more question before we end the session. So where will be the renewable energy zone be located at, and will it be near the Sedenak Tech Park, since we are heading towards developing greener data centers?
Okay, thank you for that question, right? Because I think we've been waiting keenly from the announcements that's happened in phase 1 and phase 2. As I mentioned, I think of course, there's no mention of Sedenak or, but I think we're talking about Johor, with a lot of mention about data centers. And in our conversations with our stakeholders and partners, I think the thinking is this, if we were to make this a success, right, investments will come when the demand is there. Yeah. So for us, we see Sedenak as driving that demand. Even today, the data center players that we have, I can tell you that the demand for power there is close to 2 gigawatts by 2030, just on the data centers alone. And like I said, how do we do that with solar? We can't, not today. And even if we do an aggressive solar farming LSS project, do we want to be utilizing land for that? Right, that's opportunity cost, and there's so many considerations there. So for me, the demand, I think we're thinking that in terms of demand, we fit, right? We have a mixed demand segments, from residential customers later to industrial customers. And if we're looking at a RE zone as pilot sites, this could fit. Yeah. I mean, if you were to test policies, incentives, business models, build an innovation hub, like I said, to encourage investments coming in, startups, people innovating towards RE technology, it could be a very good location because we have the ecosystem there, and we are also very keen to drive it for our area as well as for the state. Yeah, so I think I can comment that much. But yes, we are talking to the partners and stakeholders in the state, as well as at national level with Khazanah, etc., to see how we can play a part.
Okay, and okay, very last question because we have just a few minutes left. So how much more land does JLand have in Sedenak after step 1 and step 2, if you happen to, if you are allowed to share?
I am allowed to share. I don't have the numbers with me, but step 1 and step 2 is around 700 odd, right, out of 7,003 lah, right. And on top of that, we have already carved out for the logistics under Pyeongnam JV another 300. So we have plenty of room to grow.
Right, okay. All right, I think yeah, that's all for the Q&A session. Maybe perhaps Cik Muaz, you have make a final remarks before we end the session.
Well, my final remark, I guess, I think my view of the situation is the stars are aligning. Yeah. The growth drivers, I think businesses need to take on and see it through the lens of the customer, right, and drive new value. For us, we really try to do that because our business is tough, right? If you're looking at property as traditional real estate, it's tough. Yeah. So we want to see how do we look at the customer situation, and how do we, yes, we have our townships and our industrial parks. These are our communities that we build. Yeah. So what can we provide to those communities, not just from our own capabilities, of course, right? So I guess the call today is, I hope, if there are partners that share this vision for Johor and its citizens, I think we are open to talking about innovative ideas, how to provide the solutions to our stakeholders.
Okay, with that, I think before we end the session, I'd like to thank again Cik Muaz, for taking his time to share JLand's initiatives and prospects on Johor. And thank you
Very
to
welcome.
all the audience, for participating in this session. So I think we can end this session, and I'll pass on the floor to the MC. Alia, on to you.